G'day everyone, and welcome. Today we have an exciting opportunity to dive into a groundbreaking sector that's transforming mental health treatment. I'm thrilled to be chatting with Adam Coape-Arnold, the CEO and founder of Cubed Biotech, a Canadian psychedelic biotechnology firm. With over a decade of experience in regulated industries, he has successfully marketed and branded 5 companies, each achieving annual sales exceeding $10 million. His expertise includes developing disruptive products in sectors such as regulated raw dairy and cannabis. Under his leadership, Cubed Biotech focuses on cultivating, extracting, and purifying natural ethogens like psilocybin from mushrooms, mescaline from cactus, and DMT from ayahuasca, alongside synthetic alternatives. The company's 19,000 square foot facility in Montreal is recognized as a leading psychedelic production center. Now, beyond his role at Cubed Biotech, Adam serves as the vice chairman and board member of PsychCan, Canada's biotech trade association. He has also been involved in the cannabis industry, contributing to over $150 million in legal cannabis sales. Adam's commitment in advancing psychedelic medicine is evident in his effort to develop innovative treatment for mental health conditions, positioning Cubed Biotech at the forefront of this emerging field. Now, back in 2021, Cube raised around $1 million through VentureCrowd at 25 cents per share. Fast forward to today, and Cube's now amongst the top 5 psychedelic manufacturers in the world, and they're raising another round through VentureCrowd at 50 cents per share. Significant uplift, and a true testament to their success so far. What's even more exciting? The regulatory landscape in Australia is shifting in their favour. Psychiatrists in Australia are now able to prescribe psilocybin and MDMA for certain medical health conditions, including PTSD and treatment-resistant depression. Now, with the Therapeutic Goods Administration supporting these treatments, the door is open, wide open, for a massive shift in mental health care, and Cubed is really leading that charge. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Adam, let's kick things off with some quick fire questions, all about Cubed Biotech and what you guys are doing. Tell me about Cubed Biotech's team, your experience, the structure of the company, and also the key successes to date.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jacob. So Cubed, we founded in 2021 with 3 partners, Doug, Anthony, and Dave. Doug is a ex-CEO of a New York Stock Exchange company and in charge of corporate governance. He's in New York. Anthony is a financier in Toronto and owns the AFL Arena Football League and is a mover and shaker in Toronto, as well as with his partner Dave Ferris, who have been instrumental in raising the $6 million to date that we've raised. Me personally, born in Montreal, raised in New York, came back to study at McGill, and I jumped right into regulatory operations, starting with frozen yogurt, steakhouses, and then getting into cannabis and raw dairy. In dairy, I processed over 5 million liters of milk a year. And in cannabis, I commercialized 3 companies that are doing about $150 million in sales now. So I really cut my teeth learning how to navigate with federal rules, which set me up perfectly for this role in psychedelic biotech, which enables us to get a dealer's license from Health Canada, which we've had for a year and a half now in good standing, and is really the green light to produce natural entheogens, aka classic psychedelics. We grow mushrooms, we extract, we purify isolated and full spectrum products. We work with mescaline from cactus. We work with DMT and the Harmala alkaloids in ayahuasca, the brew from South America, as well as many others like 5-MeO DMT, something we make synthetically but exists in nature in the salivary glands of a Sonoran toad. So really working with the whole spectrum of psychedelic molecules on a natural and synthetic basis, which separates us from the pack. Key successes: raising $6 million, receiving our dealer's license from Health Canada, growing our first mushroom harvest, and creating natural psilocybin isolate are really some excellent milestones we've had. We also have sponsored research at Cambridge University, Duke University, and McGill, and the Cambridge-Duke collaboration actually succeeded in healing a woman who had PTSD from prior trauma with 5-MeO DMT, and she's been healed for over 2 years now. So, and on top of that, our latest milestone, Jacob, is our chemistry department has discovered molecules that are hybrids of essentially mushrooms and cactus, but technically tryptamines and phenylethylamines that could potentially be non-hallucinogenic. And we're excited to start drug discovery on that with hopefully the help of your team, your investors.
Excellent. So you're saying that the team actually discovered that?
Yeah, I brought in our first chemist did a lot of the intellectual property around the creation of these products. He was a psychonaut, Pavel, from Prague, Czechia, actually. And then after he was on a visa, we brought in a woman who had 6 years of experience, Alexandria, with working as a clinical research organization chemist, discovering molecules for other companies. So instead of outsourcing and spending way more money than it actually takes to do it in-house, I chose to hire people that could discover on our own, knowing that we can synthesize in our synthetic room quicker than if that was outsourced too. So discover, synthesize, and the next step is to put these molecules through drug development and hopefully come up with a patentable novel chemical entity that is non-hallucinogenic. You don't feel it, you're not aware, but resets the default mode network or acts, similar to serotonin with the 5-HT 2A receptor, 2B, 2C. There's about 14 receptors that these molecules work with.
That's really cool. Now, I personally think that what Cube's doing is revolutionary, but I'm curious to understand what inspired you and Cube to focus on also the psychedelic drug development for mental health.
Mm-hmm. So this was cubed in December 2020, and we incorporated and raised about $3 million in 3 weeks in April 2021. So it's no secret that COVID and the mental health challenges associated with being locked in, at least in Canada, were something that I wanted to really focus on. I'd been in food and cannabis and saw that, yes, there's a health component to both, but really to focus on mental health, substance abuse, depression, generalized anxiety, that I really wanted to heal the world. And I was very lucky to find 3 partners that had the same mission statement and that could help raise the money, govern the corporation, and be a great, strong board of directors to focus me as a CEO on crystal clear path to creating natural entheogens, aka classic psychedelics, that we know anecdotally, historically, and now through some clinical trials heal people for long periods of time, some of them without any other doses, up to 5 years of healing their alcohol disorder, alcohol abuse, and depression.
Very cool. And how does Cube Biotech's approach differ from those more traditional
Mhm.
antidepressants, and other psychedelic companies? Obviously, it's an industry that's like at the forefront of all of this, right? It's really groundbreaking stuff. So I'm just kind of understanding how this approach is different.
So number one, we are the only company in the world that produces 3 types of psilocybin: natural isolate from our mushrooms, full spectrum or strain specific, similar to a cannabis approach of a strain extracted, and synthetic. So that's number one. That really differentiates from the primarily synthetic produced psilocybin, which is effective. But Bernard Lair from Hadassah Brain Labs put out a seminal paper last year that proved that there is full spectrum products with the other tryptamines and terpenoids do last longer. There's not a huge difference between psilocybin isolate and full spectrum product like a mushroom extract, but the full spectrum seems to last longer because of the metabolites created. So yeah, being able to produce natural psilocybin, synthetic psilocybin, stained with mescaline, DMT, MDMA naturally too. We're the only company developing natural MDMA from sassafras and saffrol, as far as I know, which is obviously to meet the modern demand of natural products. If someone can get natural psilocybin over synthetic psilocybin, of course, inherently most people are going to want that, especially if the price is about the same. It's just a lot of it is psychological, but a lot of it is, longer effects from the full spectrum natural product. So really does differentiate us. The other differentiation is in our world, there's drug developers and there's manufacturers. We're both. There are probably 1 or 2 other companies in the world that can do what I do from spore to store, from,
Mhm.
creating, manufacturing, synthesizing, and making natural isolate to getting into drug development and hopefully making finished products, even in our own facility. There's actually no one set up to do all three. Creating the API to making a finished product, which would be like a pressed pill tablet in a blister pack found at your pharmacy with a note, or for instance through the TGA descheduling in Australia or the special access program in Canada. The Commonwealth has taken, charge of psychedelics, and we are leading, and very proud. Hopefully maybe Britain's next in the Commonwealth.
Gotcha. Now, you've spoken a little bit about key successes so far, Adam, but I'd really love you to jump into, some of the key milestones that you and Cube have achieved so far, and where some of those key milestones might be moving forward.
Right. So I think the one that has the largest promise is our discovery of these, what I call CB002 oscillate. An oscillate is like a jaguar, so it sort of harkens to South American Amazonian basin and rainforest. And this product is designed in-house with no clinical research organization or discovery company to be A, unpatented, so novel, and B, a hybrid, as I said earlier, of a mushroom and a cactus, or if you want a mushroom and MDMA or sassafras, which, MDMA is derived from. So those two, you could call the tryptamine resets the default mode network, resets our mind's negative thought loop, and the phenylethylamine, or the mescaline slash MDMA style in this hybrid, is an empathogen. It makes you feel good. So the idea is that it's going to be non-hallucinogenic, but even if some of these molecules aren't, the empathogenic, warm, fuzzy feel of mescaline and MDMA will sort of mitigate the more difficult journey, trip, or experience that people do have with mushrooms, because, they are challenging experiences. They're not like just taking antidepressants. And what's unique here is the difference between SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor antidepressants, and these serotonin-like tryptamines, like obviously psilocybin, but LSD, et cetera, 5-MeO-DMT, is that we're adding exogenous molecules to the body, just like if you were to smoke or vape cannabis, you're getting external exogenous THC. Whereas with SSRI antidepressants like Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, and Effexor XR, it's blocking the serotonin essentially in the synapse between the two neurons. So what we have there is, if you have a deficiency in serotonin, a typical antidepressant pill will not contribute to more serotonin, and in essence does not reset the default mode network, which is essentially a network in our brain between the prefrontal cortex, the nucleus accumbens, and a couple other places that our McGill research is helping in a rat brain model with psilocybin to discover. But we're really seeing that rumination in a human from trauma, aka in simpler terms, negative thought loop, is really what prevents people from healing. And that's what tryptamines or serotonin-like products like psilocybin or psilocin, the active version of psilocybin, really helps and floods the neurons. So it's just that much more effective without side effects, which SSRIs typically can come for. And most people are on SSRIs for as long as they're in therapy, as long as their psychiatrist keeps prescribing it. Some people are on for the rest of their lives. But with psychedelics, we're seeing 1, 2, or 3 doses over 60 days can heal up to 5 years. NYU
Wow.
Langone had a seminal research on alcohol abuse, and I've spoken to a patient in that trial, and they were drinking 15 drinks a night on Wall Street, and now they don't drink at all. So this is magical healing.
Wow. So you said speeding up the process by 5 years. That's exceptional.
No
But
going backwards for 5 years. Imagine that, healing for 5 years.
wow. Okay. Now a little bit onto more so the investment round. So it's coming in with VentureCrowd. The offer is 50 cents, and it's ordinary equity. Want to you just kind of articulate for investors investing in this round what the exit strategy is?
Absolutely. So it's no secret, as a biotech company, we want to list on exchange. We were very lucky compared to our competitors not to force a listing in Canada. Most of these biotech manufacturers and drug developers are based in Canada because of cannabis and other, access points from fundraising and investors to the actual exchanges in Canada. And most of our competitors lost about 85% of their market cap. So we have retained our value. Last round with you, very successful at 25 cents. We've only doubled to 50 cents Canadian, about 9% different than Australian currency at this moment today. And, after all these milestones we've met since working with you, which was like a seed or Series A, we could call it, but in startup mode, getting the dealer's license, mitigating all these risks, making products, proving that our R&D is successful, and our chemists created natural psilocybin isolate, and also the full spectrum products, as well as all the other molecules, really should give some confidence. Your team back in the day chose a winner, and now we certainly are gearing up to list on an American exchange. Of course, I can't make any promises in a legal context, but we have hired a Wall Street underwriter, broker dealer, who's already brought us in some money on a debenture. And we certainly would like to go public so we have more access to funds. But we've already signed a $15 million ELOC, an equity line of credit, or a SEDA, SEDA, when we go public. So we're very well poised to do that. I can't give you a timeline, but I could tell you we're writing the prospectus, we're doing our PCAOB audits from our US GAAP, and we're certainly running and gunning. I just, external factors such as, presidents and things like that, I can't give a promise, but some of the funds in this round from VentureCrowd are to be allocated in a go public round, the costs. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what you're saying, it's an excellent time to jump on board at this point.
It might be the last equity raise as a private company. So I'd probably...
Yep. Okay, and what about the expected market size for Cubed and the products? How do you guys plan to really, capture that market share?
Right. So we really want our primary revenue model, knowing that drug development is a long 4 to 6 year play. Our immediate, meaning this year in 2026, we want to take advantage of what we're seeing blossom from Canada, Australia, and Oregon into the other states. There are about 35 states that are deregulating or doing funding research or actually legalizing. For instance, New Jersey, their state Senate Health Committee and Finance Committee already passed a psilocybin basically legalization and regulatory framework, which who knows when it will come in, but probably in the next 12 months, as well as Virginia, New York, New Jersey, I said, and Florida. So being from New York, born in Montreal, but growing up in New York, I want to take advantage of the Eastern Seaboard. Now, we did a projections, and our demographic was based on people in America with mental health conditions that are prescribed SSRI antidepressant medication, who are willing, about half of these people were willing to take this medication. Because think about it, in a trial, or just taking, you have to get off your antidepressants, right? And at that point, that number represents 4.6% of the 330 to 350 million Canadians, Americans, as well as about a tenth of that, 35 million Canadians. So about 5%. We expect out of that 5%, state by state, not all of North America overnight, will probably in the next 10 years, RFK with the HHS in the US might move that quicker, but who knows? We expect 1 to 2% of that 4.6%, which will be very healthy margins for us to what we call hit singles, a baseball analogy, while we do our research and development in the clinical trial. We don't want to be the rest of the strict drug developers that are allocating $5 to $100 million a year in clinical trials with only a 5% chance of succeeding through the FDA or Health Canada. I think you could imagine once one or two players gets over the line, like GW Pharma's Epidiolex and cannabis, the other companies sort of shrink back, right? Especially we saw that in cannabis. A lot of clinical trials on CBD halted and stopped for good after Epidiolex from GW Pharma, a British company, was approved by the FDA. So we don't want to be that company where we just fold. So that's why we have short, midterm, and long term. The midterm is the focus of the midterm. The real winner here is focusing in a copy paste method like medical cannabis in a multi-state operation concept.
Gotcha. And I guess on that short to midterm terminology, what are the near-term and long-term revenue streams
Yeah.
for you guys?
So near term is as we just got out of R&D with all these molecules, pitching to clinical trials. One trial in Canada told me he's been looking for our isolated psilocybin for 4 years, and all he's been able to get is synthetic. So that really gives you an idea of how unique our intellectual property is. So clinical supply, manufacturing for research in universities. But what we're seeing now is once people get to know us and tour our site, 19,000 square feet over 2 floors in Montreal with the dealer's license from Health Canada. One CEO, who's a psychedelic biotech CEO on the NASDAQ, said this is the most advanced psychedelic molecule production facility in the world. So because of that, we have been, people have been coming in wanting R&D partnerships to look for us to develop critical intellectual property, SOP standard, operating procedures around producing these molecules, whether it's natural MDMA, ibogaine, and things like that, where we can use our own R&D we've already done to accelerate other companies by out-licensing. So we believe out-licensing in the short term through R&D partnerships is really going to be lucrative.
Gotcha. And now for a pretty important question, I think maybe one of the most important questions for you, Adam. So get ready for this one. You've used a handful of baseball terminologies, hit singles being one of them. You grew up in New York. Who is it, Mets or the Yankees for you?
New York Mets, 100%. Rest of my
Ah,
family. I
I'm
grew up
so
in
happy you said
Westchester
that.
near Yankee Stadium. Queens,
Yeah.
where the Mets play, is very far, but I was 8 or 9 years old when the Mets won the World Series in 1986. So I'm a Gary Carter guy all day. No problem.
Oh, I love that.
I passed a
And
lot of good Yankees tickets. My little sister went instead.
that's so cool. Now, I want to kind of segue that into obviously the psychedelic industry. There's a lot of outdated mindsets out there about, its use, it obviously being previously a legal substance, which lends itself to, I guess, the regulatory landscape and the challenges that surround that, right? So, how does Cube plan to really manage those regulatory changes across different markets, like Australia, US, Canada? How does it really kind of plan to tackle that?
So one word, Jacob, patience on the regulatory environment. Now, we're lucky that Canada and Australia have taken charge and have allowed psilocybin and MDMA into their programs through doctors, of course, very responsible and non-recreational, strictly for therapeutic needs. But we have mitigated our production facility, but they're always slow regulatory environments like New Jersey. I thought it would pass in December and their legislature adjourned, and now they have to come back and pass it now. And then it will take 12 months to actually, come to fruition. So we're lucky that Australia, Canada, and Oregon have taken note. So that's really what we're talking about. Of course, the inherent risks are cash flow and, burning cash. This is a slow revenue industry right now, small and slow revenue. 2 or 3 companies are making $500,000 a year. That's not necessarily enough to compete in this world where most of the strict drug developers don't have any revenue and probably will never have revenue if you think about they're just going to license their products once clinical trials succeed, if they do, to big pharma. So, they'll get cash at the end and then they'll fold and their shareholders would be happy. For us, another risk would be lack of these agreements I'm talking about, R&D partnerships, etc. But the uniqueness of what we've created here with the brilliant intellectual property created by my chemists, my mycologists, has a lot of value. And I would say, the main risk we took was being ahead of the curve. We weren't first in. We didn't get shot at over the hill, to use a military reference. But being sort of the second wave of psychedelics means we didn't kill ourselves on the Canadian Stock Exchange and destroy our market cap. Most of those companies tell me that they feel the Canadian exchanges are illiquid. They can't raise more than 500,000. So we're very excited for potential opportunities on the NYSE American or the US SIBO, and hopefully the NASDAQ, which is where biotechs belong. And the underwriters will have, easier opportunities to raise money in the US and Canada. So that's really it. We had a lot of risks with your first round because we were a fledgling company, and your team, obviously, with us, got some great investors who, now the value is there, the cost is more, but it's only 25 cents more, 25 to 50. So it's not too expensive. We're still what I believe is a good value. If you look at other biotechs, with 9-figure market caps, we're around 25 million. So, very, very, hopefully a good investment. I don't want to pull anyone's arm, but we've mitigated every risk of a startup biotech company. And probably very important to potential investors, we burn less than 1 million Canadian a year. When I say that to investors who are savvy in biotech or life sciences, they say 1 million a month. I say, no, 1 million a year. So we know how to allocate capital. We're good stewards and shepherds of investments, and we'll be very smart with any investment from VentureCrowd.
Excellent. That makes me very excited. I've got one more question for you here. It's around partnerships with
Yeah.
people like Duke University, recently featured on White Lotus, Cambridge, McGill, and how they play into the company's growth strategy.
Yeah. So we noticed when we founded the company in 2021 that almost every psychedelic biotech and drug development were focusing on commercial clinical trials. And we didn't want to skip the fundamental research that was needed to understand why psilocybin works, why tryptamines work, why any psychedelics work. Because, since the 1960s, similar to cannabis, funding was just halted. There was great stigma around psychedelics for essentially obvious, but maybe not real reasons. There was a scare back in the 60s, and we wanted to know why psilocybin works. Not just, okay, we have a novel chemical and we'll make some money off of it and the markets will adjust and love us. We wanted to really put some money in to understanding why the default mode network, these parts of our brain, are reset by serotonin-like psychedelics, and why people are stuck in ruminative or negative thought loops. So we decided to allocate a decent amount of money. We were lucky to be in Quebec, where there's a provincial money. We got a $500,000 grant. About 400 was from the province of Quebec, and CQDM, which was stamped by the Minister of Economy and Innovation and Energy in Quebec, which was, obviously a great credibility for us. And we wanted to work at McGill because it's one of the best non-Ivy Leagues. I went there. It's in Montreal. And Duke and Cambridge was through some Canadian researchers who now live down there. And we were very lucky to work with them and have what was a well-known paper people actually know. And of course, Cubed was mentioned as a sponsor, but to cure one person. So like a preclinical clinical trial, an N of one or a cohort of one, to speak technical. And, we just wanted to make sure that the industry didn't skip fundamental understanding of why psychedelics work. So a bit of a pro bono type, benevolent play, not just, what assets can we accrue.
Gotcha. Excellent. Adam, that was absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate your time today. Thought that was exceptionally insightful, and loved every minute of it. Now, it's really been a pleasure just asking those questions, learning more about that as well for your love of the New York Mets, which I'm very impressed by the way. So for those tuning in, if you want to learn more about Cubed, the investment opportunity, please just go to the link below. I'll be able to share the expression of interest page for you and the raise page very shortly. Now, Adam, is there anything or any final thoughts you have there to wrap this up?
Yeah, I'll be a little obsequious. I'm really happy to be back working with you and your team, Jacob. VentureCrowd raised over 850,000 Canadian dollars 2 years ago now. And we were shocked. It exceeded our expectations. The credibility and the trust from your team and the actual investors was fantastic. And we're hoping to, go over $1 million this time and really help us and create value, not just for previous investors from VentureCrowd, but these investors that we hopefully bring in with you. So always a pleasure. You're as professional as anyone we know in the industry, and we're just excited to be back with you. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to also give more Australians the opportunity to invest in a company like Cubed. Very, very excited. So, look, for everyone else watching, thanks for joining. And if you have any more questions, send them through to myself. I'll share my contact details below. But until next time, take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob.